Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking of the Arts. We're going to do something completely different today. I will not be your host for today's episode, and I'm really excited to pass along the reins to Marie Leclerc. Marie is our East Coast booking agent, but this will be her first time hosting an episode of Speaking of the Arts. She's got an incredible guest lined up for everybody. She's going to be speaking to Nate Query. Nate is the bassist for the great rock group The Decemberists. I'm really excited to have her talk to Nate and share her conversation with you guys. Thanks so much for listening. Here is Marie.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, at least for this week, Marie Leclerc. I'm so excited about our guest this week, Nate Query, longtime bass player for the Grammy-nominated Portland, Oregon-based rock band The Decemberists. And he's a personal friend of mine. The Decemberists have toured all over the world, performing for an extremely dedicated fan base for over 20 years, and have an impressive body of work that continues to evolve with each project. In our conversation, Nate and I talked about how the Decemberists got together and what it's like to keep a band together for such a long time, and celebrating the band's 20th anniversary during the pandemic. We also talked about Nate's volunteer work for the organization Open Hearts, Open Minds. OHOM is an Oregon-based nonprofit organization that supports individuals serving prison sentences through arts and dialogue, facilitating personal and institutional transformation and growth. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Nate Query. All right, so Nate Query, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Marie. It's good to be here.
So Nate happens to be a member of one of my favorite bands called the Decemberists, which hasn't done a whole lot of touring lately.
Not so much.
But do you want to maybe start by just giving a little background of the band and sort of how, because you've been in the band since the very beginning, which was 20 years ago now, right?
Yeah. In the year 2000, we that was when Colin was starting the band, and when I was first met him and Ezra, he and Ezra Holbrook on drums had a band with a guitar player named David Langenus, and they had a bass player that they decided they wanted to do upright bass. So somebody asked me if I would come and play with them at a rehearsal and see how it goes. That was 2000, and we kind of hit it off. And then at the first show I played with them, Jenny Conley came, who I'd known for a long time, and Colin found out she played accordion, and then she promptly joined the band. And for the end of 2000 and 2001 and even into 2002, like, we made an EP and we made a record, but we hadn't really played outside of Portland, maybe Seattle. And then it was when Kill Rock Stars got involved in 2002, and re-released the first record and started putting out the next steps that we did a national tour and started to sort of grow. And we've been a band since. The last couple of years, we've done barely anything.
As is the case with everybody.
As it goes, yeah.
I have some of the artists that we work with even are bands that, like yours, have had members that have been in there from the very beginning for a long time. How do you think that affects, even though the band has evolved quite a lot since the beginning, the sound of the band, from record to record and everything, how do you think that affects the bands, that there are a number of you that have really been in there for the long haul?
Well, I think there's something special about hearing people play together that have a long music relationship together. So, like, Jenny and I have been playing together since I was in high school. And then, the Decemberists have been together a long time. The new guy is John Moen, who joined in 2005. So there's just sort of an intuitiveness and a depth of understanding you have each other that is cool and creates, like, really unique musical moments that you wouldn't get with people that didn't know each other coming into a room. there's sort of a trust there and stuff that can be exciting. I mean, it can be really exciting to hear what musicians do that are totally unfamiliar with each other, and that's a whole different thing. But it's pretty cool hearing bands that have. I like listening to bands that have a long relationship together and hear what they can do. It's hard to keep a band together that long. There has to be a lot of things have to go right, and you have to be really good at resolving conflict or living with it, one or the other.
So then how do you so then how do you keep things interesting from record to record, and sort of is it that there's like sort of the comfort to try things because you're so comfortable playing together, or is it something that you need to work at to keep things like fresh?
It can go both ways. There's definitely been, I think there's been times where first of all, the Decemberists, one thing that makes it easy is that Colin, who's the primary songwriter, he's very prolific. And he also knows us all really well, both musically and as people, but he'll sometimes write things, even from early on, he would sometimes write things that would sort of play to one of our strengths maybe as a musician, but he would also write things that he knew would put us out of our comfort zone a little bit and try and push us. But having material that's always coming in and is kind of diverse, and it isn't all just like one style of songwriting, that's really fun. But there's definitely been times where I think we've felt like we were just kind of giving every song the Decemberist treatment in the studio, like where we kind of have the same ups and downs to the song and stuff. And we try and catch ourselves and try and work with a producer that's willing to say, maybe we should mix it up here. Let's try something different. Not always have everyone drop out the third verse, or not always have it build a certain way. So it's kind of a mix. I mean, sometimes it's like, because you're comfortable, you can really try different things. And also you're more comfortable telling each other like, nah, that's not good. Let's keep moving. But then there's also times where you can kind of get into a rut together. And like with our last record, which we made in 2017 and released in 2018, I think that's right. We worked with a different producer. We'd done 3 or 4 records in a row with the same producer, and we hired a different producer whose records really don't sound like ours at all. And part of that thinking was just to mix it up and challenge ourselves a little bit. And it was really fun that I think we all also missed Tucker Martine, our longtime producer and friend. So I don't know, you're always kind of, it's both at the same time.
So then what was it like celebrating the 20th anniversary of the band during the pandemic and doing those live streams as sort of your first kind of step back into playing again?
Well, the 20th anniversary concert tour was going to be a month in summer 2020. Mm-hmm. And so it was a big bummer because it went away and we canceled it. We postponed it to 2021. And then this spring, we were like, our machine is pretty big. Like it's like 2 tour buses and a truck and all this rented gear and all this tons of gear that we own. And between bus drivers and band and crew, it's like 20 people. So the idea of going on tour with uncertainty was just too overwhelming. So we canceled the tour completely and decided to do a live stream thing this spring. As sort of not really a consolation prize, but it sort of was a consolation. Like, we can't go on tour, but you know what? It might be fun to do this. And it would be nice to mark this anniversary. So.
And it seemed like it was pretty, it seemed like the fans were pretty excited about it.
Yeah. And what was neat about it is, it's funny if you could play a show. Imagine playing a show for only your most hardcore fans from every city. Instead of like going to a city and there's like a front row that's really excited, and then like a bunch of people that are excited, and then a bunch of people that just bought tickets because they read it in the weekly. It's like only the front row. The whole you can't see them when you're performing. We pre-recorded everything.
Yeah.
But it was kind of fun. It was one thing that was really different and fun was that when the shows aired, we could watch it and see all the comments go by. And that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. And we could even interact a little bit, though. It's hard to keep up. But and then we had a VIP package where people could buy the streams to all 3 shows, plus a Q&A with the band when the show's over. And it was kind of fun to do this little Zoom Q&A webinar after the show.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was awesome to connect to our fans after being gone and then playing the show in front of nobody, just a couple camera guys, it was nice to be able to air it and have this interactive format.
Do you think you'll do another one, or at this point you're just kind of waiting to? Well, you guys, you played one live show not too long ago, right?
In June, we went to Telluride Bluegrass Festival. They decided to put on their festival sort of at the last minute, and we did an acoustic show. So we did really stripped down, and that's the only live show we've done. It was fun. It was really fun.
So then what's the plan moving forward, or is there one yet?
We're hoping to tour next summer. If the pandemic becomes endemic and we can all do things, then I think we'll be able to do that tour. We don't have plans for a record or anything at this point, and I don't think we'll do another live stream. That was really fun, and I could imagine live streaming a show or two from a tour for all the people that can't go to one of the, we only play 20 shows
right
when we do a month-long tour. But we're not super busy right now, and maybe we would if we make another record in the next few years, but there's no plan right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I guess all of that sort of leads me into the sort of main catalyst for why I wanted to have you on as a guest at this particular time. And that's because I know that over the years you've worked on a whole slew of different side projects and things that, as far as playing music with, and releasing other albums and stuff. But you have a really cool thing that you're working on right now at a prison in Portland.
Yeah. A few years ago, almost 3 years ago, I started working, helping out with a music recording program inside a prison in Portland, Oregon. And it's basically just a space for people to record, for the guys inside to record whatever they want to record. There's some instruments in there, and then we had to figure out equipment to bring in that is allowed by the Department of Corrections. But I was just kind of helping out with that and going in most weeks, because it's once a week. And then over the lockdown, we were locked out of the prison. But this summer, when it looked like they were gonna let us back in, the guy who was in charge of it stepped down and asked me, or the organization that runs it asked me if I would take it over. So I am taking it over. And I got back in July and was in for a couple months, and I just got locked out again last week. So there's some bureaucratic stuff to figure out, but yeah, it's been really interesting. Since over the last bunch of years, I found I'm always looking for cool ways to connect to people with me through music that isn't just like putting a band together and trying to make a record and tour. Like music, I think music has a lot of potential for community building too. And that's kind of how I see this.
So like what's involved in this? I mean, are you sort of teaching people how to record, or are some of them already like experienced? Like how does that all work?
It's all over the map. And I really try and take the approach that so one thing that a lot of people don't realize about prisons, some of them have they're all different. Some of them have more robust programs for incarcerated adults than others. Some have almost nothing, but a lot of the cool programming is really dependent upon volunteers and volunteer organizations. And so the organization that I work with started out doing plays like Shakespeare in the Oregon State Penitentiary and stuff. And then this music program is one of their newer programs. So at the very basic level, my presence there for those 2 hours every Monday means that there's a space. We use the chapel, but there's a physical space that the guys can gather and work on music. And I'm the volunteer that sort of like bureaucratically allows this thing to happen. So I try and really make it about them and let them lead it and try and like cater it to what the guys there want to work on, which might really be all over the map. There's been guys that have had thrash metal bands or country singer-songwriters. A lot of it is rapping to beats. Like I bring in beats from YouTube or whatever. I'm trying to get more people to make beats that I can bring into. And then sometimes it's somebody wants to put a band together, and like pre-lockdown, a couple times I brought my bandmates in because we wanted to record somebody's song, but there wasn't a drummer inside. So I brought a drummer in and then I played bass and we'd live track stuff. So it really, I'm not really teaching unless somebody's trying to figure something out, and if I can help, I will. I am trying to get some of the guys that are interested to do the actual recording part of running the board and stuff, because it frees me up to sort of talk to new people coming in and stuff, but it also means that they're practicing that skill, and the more they're self-sufficient, the better. And in fact, right now, while I'm locked out, the chaplain and the director of programs that works inside the prison are trying to keep the program going they have to go down there and be there for 2 hours, which they're all very busy and it's difficult. But until I can get my badge issues worked out, those guys can go down there, and then the incarcerated guys can run the program themselves because they know how to, enough of them know how to run the gear.
So what's the name of the organization that is sort of helping facilitate this?
It's called Open Hearts, Open Minds of Oregon. And they have some writing programs. They used to do a guitar lessons thing, and they have some theater programs. And then mine's the music studio at the prison I work at is the only program like it.
Oh, wow.
Within their thing. Yeah.
So how can people get involved and help? I'm sure you must need some funds at the very least.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to, I am. So I agreed to take over, and then like a week later got an email from the chaplain that's like, hey, you can come back in. I was like, oh my God, I'm not ready. So I've been scrambling to mostly focus on getting the program inside working well. And Open Hearts, Open Minds has enough of a budget for me that I've been able to buy some of the gear we need. And then until I can get more people inside, there's only so much people outside can help. But I do think that the best way people can help is to, at least for me personally, I can, if I can get donated headphones or iPods and stuff like that, that's helpful because I can use those like old iPods or MP3 players. And then or donate to the organization to give us more of a budget. But I also think that in general, just finding out about local, look around your area and see who's working in prisons or who's working on a bail fund, or just read a book about what it's like in prisons, or listen to some of the podcasts that are out there about prisons. I think that this is bubbling up and it's hot right now, but I think that it's really important that people like listen to the stories of incarcerated people and formerly incarcerated people and learn, so that we're recognizing that people in prison and who've been in prison and marked by that experience are our neighbors and they're our community, and feel connected to it, rather than like there's an element of people go to prison and they disappear. So you can write letters to prisoners, you can donate to a local bail fund. There's lots of things like that. And I almost think that's more important than necessarily getting involved in my program, because they're all small and localized mostly. And the Department of Corrections almost everywhere limits greatly limits the scope of most of what we can do.
Yeah. Wow. I was really glad even when I just saw you post on Facebook about this, because it had never, I admit that, it just never even dawned on me that
Mhm.
something like that would even can exist, because it's just not something that you hear about, unless you go looking for it.
No, it's true. There's really those prison walls are really strong and really big. And there's an element of once people get into the system, they're just sort of, it's really hard for them to connect back to our society. And once you start digging in a little bit to our entire prison system, I mean, a lot of people are starting to understand this better, but it's just unbelievable how much in my lifetime, like starting with Reagan and maybe even Nixon, but really Reagan, like we just built a gajillion prisons. And when you build more prisons and you have more people making money off prisons, you need to get more people in jail, and maximum, like minimum sentencing laws and all this stuff. There's just guys that are people in jail forever. And there's also a lot of ways in which it's really hard to re-enter when you're done. And some people are trying to change this, but it's really, there's that, all the negative aspects of our carceral system have a lot of momentum. So the people trying to change it, it's like a very uphill battle. And I'm still learning about the bigger picture of it, but I feel really lucky to be in the situation where I just go in and do music with these guys inside, and it feels powerful to make that connection. And it inspires me to learn more about the bigger picture and try and connect to other people that are working to make it more humane.
Yeah. Well, because it's been my experience that, you only really hear about the prison system on the news when it's bad stuff. Like here in New York, lately, all they're talking about is Rikers Island, because there's been a huge spike in prisoner deaths and fighting and all kinds of violence, but they only tell you one side of the story. They don't really talk about what the actual conditions are and and who's in there. It's only after there's a tremendous amount of pressure put on the mayor.
And Rikers is a good example of a place where it's a lot of people that are just there while they're waiting for trial because they can't afford bail, which is insane. Like, because when we don't get mad if a rich person can bail themselves out and they just hang out, it still sucks to be in purgatory while you're waiting for your trial. But it sucks a lot more if you're in jail, and jails don't even necessarily have they don't necessarily have programs. They don't have as good of visiting situations. There's all these ways in which it's so messed up. And you only hear about it when it gets so egregious that people are dying. But even on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of just unbelievable unfairness and like suffering that's happening every day.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're doing something positive, and that it's sort of, I know even just for me, it kind of opened my eyes.
Yeah, and I'll send you a link to this document that Mariame Kaba put together. She wrote a book called, actually I have it right here. I'll show it to you, even though people can't see this right now, but we do this till we free us. But she has a she's one of the leading thinkers about prison abolition and just sort of like changing the way we do justice in this country. But she also is super practical, has this really amazing document that just has all these different ways you can plug in. Everything from like letter writing to learning about cash bail to, donating to local bail funds, finding organizations near you that give you opportunities to volunteer like I'm doing. And I think I've realized as I've gotten in this and I've been talking to more people about it, that a lot of people really do just want to like plug in and connect to somebody. And like letter writing is great. There's having a pen pal in prison can be a really great way to just make a personal connection that's satisfying to you. And you're going to learn a lot, but is also something really just a really caring human way to connect to somebody inside.
Wow, Nate. I think this is the most serious conversation we've ever had.
Maybe, yeah. Well,
Um,
usually it's like we're hanging out at shows and,
yeah,
you know, doing videos and
right. Yeah, doing videos at indoor bocce ball courts.
yeah, that was awesome. Or how about that one we did at the like some super busy
That's what,
intersection?
yeah, on Houston and
Yeah,
Allen.
Austin.
That
That
is,
was
do you
amazing.
know, I was thinking about that just the other day. I was driving through Lower Manhattan and I drove and I turned the corner over there and I was like, I was like, oh wait, don't crash. Like when I was like looking, I was like, I can't walk past that corner without thinking about that. It's like one of
Yeah.
my favorite things, you know.
Yeah. So for listeners, in case this makes it on the thing, I had a band called Black Prairie for a bunch of years, and were we weren't totally acoustic, but we could play totally acoustic, and we started out that way. And so we made some videos. Just we'd go to a city and just make a video in a super random place. And Maria helped us make a couple videos in New York, at the Bocce Ball Bar and
Yeah.
in Houston and Allen.
Yeah. It was so funny. There's even one spot because we filmed 2 songs on Houston. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them, there's even a spot where, and like, I think it was even like on the beat that somebody like really leaned on their horn, like,
Yeah,
like,
and it totally fit. Yeah, it was awesome.
and everyone was just kind of like, what? And then there was some guy who came up and said that he was a singer too and started singing to you guys.
Yeah. No, it's so funny. And it also, but you're in New York City, so that like maybe a few people stopped to listen for half a second and hundreds and hundreds of people walked by and just kind of like, rolled their eyes at us or something. It was really funny.
Well, I mean, that's New York for you. You have to
I
do
know.
something. You have to do something. You have to do something pretty weird to have anyone really flinch.
Yeah, for sure.
But, hopefully it won't be too long until you're in New York again, or until I'm in Portland.
I know, man. Do you have plans to come to Portland with anybody you're working with?
I was supposed to come with Maria, that was COVID canceled. We were supposed to be in Portland, Seattle,
Right.
and then a handful of stops down in California.
The first time the Decemberists toured Europe, we were just the 5 of us. We didn't bring anybody with us. And we landed in Amsterdam and got in like a day late. We got in the morning of the first show and we rented. Half the band went to sleep in the hotel until sound check, and then me and Rachel went and got the rental van from some guy named Duda and got the rental gear, and then broke every traffic law in Amsterdam driving back to the hotel. Like I drove over train tracks and stuff. I was just like so confused and sleep deprived.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that was, in some ways it was kind of a miserable tour. Like it was fun and exciting, but it was so brutal. Like we were following Cake they were on a bus tour and we're driving in a little Sprinter trying to keep up with a bus tour. And yeah, it was nuts. And we didn't even have, it's 2004. So we didn't even have, GPS or anything. We just had printed out MapQuest.
Yeah. Oh,
MapQuest. Sometimes we didn't even have the last page, or like the directions would go to like the city center because our manager just put in like, forget the name, just put the name of the city, and then it just defaults to the city center. So we get to the end of the directions and we're like, we're at the plaza. Like, I don't know. There's no venue here. It's crazy.
But it's funny. It's always the craziest, worst road stories that wind up being the really funny stories that you tell years later.
Yeah, no, totally. I did a tour with an amateur bus driver owned his own bus with my old band Clovo, and it was the most horrific thing ever. And actually, for a long time, I didn't really want to talk about it. It was so bad. But there's a lot of funny stories. Like having a bad bus driver is just the worst. It's the worst. We had a tour where we canceled I mean, we fired like a couple different bus drivers and kept having new ones flown out because they were so bad.
Really?
Yeah, like either driving weird or like acting weird. It's just too much.
We
You
had
don't want to deal
one
with that shit.
time who was watching like a movie or a TV show or something on a tablet, like next to the steering wheel while he was
You're just like, I don't think so, buddy. Come on. Yeah, or like swerving at night when you're trying to sleep and you're just like, oh my God. I was just sleeping and I'm glad he missed whatever he swerved around. But maybe was he swerving because he was paying attention or because he wasn't paying attention? You never really know.
Right. Yeah, maybe he was taking a little nap.
Yeah. Whew, scary.
But yeah, so aren't you excited to get back on the
It's funny, like I've been so in like dad mode with my kids, school and kid wrangling and all that stuff that when Telluride was coming up, I was so excited to get a break. Like I was gone. I spent an extra day there. So I was gone for 2.5 days or something. It was the longest I'd been away from my kids since the pandemic started. And it was awesome and it was weird, but it's just like that. I miss being on tour and just being like a grown-up among grown-ups. Because the pandemic with kids that are younger is just really brutal.
Yeah.
I could handle being on a bus with a bunch of old guys. Yeah.
Well, it's like, especially even since I started working for the agency, and then after not being able to go to a show for so long, I've just been reminded, especially over the last few months, that I've been sort of making the rounds, visiting venues and going to gigs, with the artists. I'm like, yeah, like that is really the best part of doing this job.
Yeah.
And to sort of not take it for granted. Totally. That was a real lesson to learn. Like when Birdland reopened in July.
I'm glad they made it. It's a scary time for lots of things, like for lots of clubs and musicians and everything. Like not everybody's figuring out how to get through. Yeah, I'm going to a show tonight and it's pouring rain and kind of cold here. And I'm like, we're really pushing this outdoor thing a little far. And I'm not really ready to go to indoor shows, I think, until at least my little guy's vaccinated. But but it's like there's this really cool venue that opened up, or at least I don't know, some people like it, some people aren't that excited about it. But I'm going to see the Blue Cranes, which is a jazz band here in Portland. And it's going to be totally pouring rain outdoor show. Like, oh my God. It won't be my first or my last pouring rain outdoor show in Portland, Oregon, but it is a little late to be doing outdoor concerts in Oregon. Like our fall is in full effect already. So,
well, we should schedule it as something another time where I'm not recording you.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay.
Make sure you, say, I don't know how frequently you're in touch with the guys and the other guys in the band, but
I'm going to see Jenny tonight, probably at that show.
All right. Well,
unless she bails because it's too wet.
We'll say hi to Jenny for me.
Okay, I will.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely. It was great talking to you.
Yeah. And make sure to email me some links and things that I can post in the text and all of that, so that I can,
I'll send you, a couple links to my thing and a link to the bocce ball video and the thing about and Mariame Kaba's thing, I'll do that.
Cool. All right, Nate. Well, take care of yourself. Say hi to Marissa.
Okay, will do. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.